Elle roucoule, coule, coule, dès qu'elle entre dans Paris. Elle s'enroule, roule, roule, autour de ses quais fleuris. Elle chante, 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 chante le jour et la nuit, car la Seine est une amante, et son amant c'est Paris.
Ah, every time I bite into a Madeleine, memory transports me to the last time I saw romantic Paris. Well, actually, it felt more like the French Revolution. As usual, militant transport workers were striking the national rail system, and the public had to make the best of it. Call me Marty. Irma and I had booked the high-speed TGV from Nice to Paris. The strike suddenly canceled our train, forcing passengers to double and triple up on one of the few trains that managed to make the run. Irma and I took turns crouching in the aisle during the 5-hour trip. At least the train was more or less on time. Our aching tailbones were giving us a rude welcome to Paris, as the sign asked, "Where were we?" We were not in the magical Paris of a Woody Allen movie, but instead in the fraught France of today, where at the Élysée Palace, President François Hollande and at the town hall, Mayor Anne Hidalgo tried to bring order to a country that makes 300 kinds of cheese. In a sputtering economy, the far right-wing National Front of Marine Le Pen is making headway with voters, although one opposing bit of graffiti read, "French youth pisses on the National Front." A city showing its sorrow for allowing the Nazis to deport and murder its Jews is home to growing numbers of Muslims, as the mosque offers a deluxe day at the ritual bath to anyone. Armed soldiers wary of terrorists patrol public areas. To cope with all the unexpected tension, we resolved to follow a store's advice in fractured English. We relaxed at the Mama Shelter Hotel in a lower middle-class neighborhood well off the beaten track in eastern Paris, instead of the overpriced restaurants of the tourist areas. On the Rue Bagnolet, we joined everyday Parisians at grocery stores, modest retail shops, ATMs. The little-known 12th century Church of Saint Blaise dominated a delightful street of small cafes and 18th century houses. We took a daily 15-minute walk to the Alexandre Dumas metro station, the community's hub. Bakeries, fruit stands, bookstalls, and once a week, a sprawling outdoor market or marché, where everything was available if you had enough euros. Fruit, fish, clothing, flowers, baguettes, cuts of beef, and even horse meat. Most tourists never see markets like this. The 300-station métro system, dating from 1900, is by far the fastest and best way to see all of Paris, not just the top sites in the guidebook. It's easy to use the system, and trains arrive every 2 or 3 minutes. If we wanted to see how real Parisians of all ages and incomes dress and get around, underground was the place. We could pick any stop and emerge to observe daily life in the French capital of 2.2 million people. 21st century Paris is innovative, with stands for low-priced shared bicycles and electric cars. If you insist on modern architecture, you can see the horrendous Montparnasse Tower, the convention center with its Hyatt Regency, some weird building designs, and every brand of American fast food counter. Like any big city, Paris has traffic and crime. Beggars lie around with cats and dogs to evoke sympathy. This guy's calico kitty did get €1 from me. The latest scam on tourists is people approaching you claiming they've just found a gold ring and will let you have it for free. On second thought, some money. 5 different people tried this trick on me, but I never make the same mistake 5 times. Strollers will find a shortage of public toilets. The pissoirs are famous, but just try to find one that actually functions. For more perspective on the underside of Paris, I took a tour of the sewers. Yes, the flowing system immortalized by Victor Hugo in Les Miserables, in which Jean Valjean takes to the reeking tunnels to flee Inspector Javert. On display in the sewers is a complete history of Paris, from the pre-Roman village of the Gallic Parisii tribe on the Ile de la Cité on the Seine, through the city's growth under the German Frankish Charlemagne, the wall-building King Philippe Auguste in the 13th century, and on through the Revolution of 1789 and beyond. Tourist Paris, for all its familiarity, is based on this history, and the sweeping Seine is tourism's lifeblood. Popular sites and some less trampled ones are on the riverbanks. The Conciergerie, for example, where Queen Marie Antoinette was jailed before she was hauled off to the guillotine. The renowned riverside stalls of the bouquinistes, the sellers of used books and prints, can be browsed every day. You may discover something of interest, even if you don't read French. Of the many bridges over the Seine, the cutest is the Pont des Arts, entirely covered with padlocks symbolizing love. A couple brings or buys a lock, writes its names on the lock for eternity, and throws the key into the river. Many of the city's key structures are on or near the river. The Grand Palais, left over from the Exposition of 1900. The Hôtel de Ville, the Town Hall. The ancient Egyptian obelisk on the Place de la Concorde. And the venerable site on everybody's list, the Cathedral of Notre Dame. Building the French Gothic masterpiece took stonemasons more than 100 years until completion in the early 13th century. Badly damaged by anti-clerical mobs during the Revolution, the edifice got some timely PR from Victor Hugo's novel The Hunchback of Notre Dame and was restored. Today, it's the city's most visited free attraction. More than 13 million people cross the threshold every year. Like Lonesome Quasimodo, you can make friends with your favorite gargoyle. My favorite is the one that looks like a pussycat. Aside from Notre Dame, Paris reflects a profoundly influential Catholic faith going back to the 5th century. Convents, abbeys, basilicas. Sacré-Cœur in Montmartre, the Sainte Chapelle of King Louis IX, Saint Louis, La Madeleine, Sainte Geneviève, the Tour Saint-Jacques, a fine old church on the Pache Rue de Rivoli, another on the Raffish left bank. Even the Pantheon, the secular shrine where national heroes including Victor Hugo are entombed, was originally a church. Napoleon Bonaparte, not a notably godly man, has the fanciest tomb in Paris and placed in a church, the gilded royal chapel built at Les Invalides by Louis XIV in the 17th century. Monarchists and fervent Catholics still resent this treatment of the revolution-spawned emperor as a sacrilege. The Eiffel Tower, a departure from religion, tops just about every visitor's must-see list. Opened in 1889 for the World Exposition on the 100th anniversary of the Revolution, the wrought iron landmark is 898 feet high and the very symbol of Paris. Gustave Eiffel also engineered the Statue of Liberty. From Joan of Arc to King Henry IV to commemorations of long-ago military victories, Paris is a city of heroic statues. And any city that names streets after artists, writers, and philosophers, as Paris does, is bound to install spectacular art in its parks and other public places. Speaking of art, millions of visitors come to Paris for its world-class museums, led by the Louvre. The colossal museum began as a 13th century fortress before Louis XIV and XV expanded it into the pentagon of palaces that it is today. Paris has countless other fine museums, including the Musée d'Orsay, the Pompidou for modern art, the less well-maintained Modern Art Museum of Paris, and others that it would take us months to fully explore. Architecture is another Parisian strong suit. For the Baroque splendor of Napoleon III, there is the Opera. For Art Deco lovers, there is the Palais de Chaillot, seat of the League of Nations between the two world wars, and a great spot to view the Eiffel Tower. Fighting our way through the street crowds on the Champs-Élysées, Irma and I reached the Arc de Triomphe, built to honor Napoleon's many victories, but finished long after his death. The arch has become France's great memorial place. The solemn tomb of the unknown soldier was placed here in 1921, after World War I. The lovely Luxembourg Gardens and their palace, the home of the French Senate, are a highlight of Paris's left bank. The famous Boulevard Saint-Michel and Saint-Germain are the main streets. The ancient Abbey of Cluny, built on Roman baths, is the excellent museum of the Middle Ages today. Students at the Sorbonne, the University of Paris, are everywhere in the Latin Quarter, so named because in the Middle Ages, teaching was in Latin. It is on the left bank that crowds throng the narrow Rue de la Huchette, not far from where plaques and bullet holes mark desperate fighting between partisans and Nazis as the Allies liberated Paris in August 1944. The guidebooks, sometimes dubiously, tout left-bank literary walks. The advice did pay off for us on the street where James Joyce wrote Ulysses. Across the street, Ernest Hemingway, his first wife Hadley, and their firstborn son lived in a third-floor flat in the early 1920s. Hemingway wrote his first best-selling prose in local cafes every day. Now a travel agency downstairs tries to cash in. Those literary walks don't always work out. In a search for the building that housed Hemingway's friends Gertrude Stein and Alice B. Toklas, we found that nothing is left. But we could still find an artist sketching on the picturesque Rue Mouffetard, one of Hemingway's favorite walks, and a street not quite abandoned to the tourists. Un petit jet d'eau en station de métro. A neighborhood of bistros told us we were back on the right bank at the fabled Pigalle, a short walk from the Moulin Rouge, and still a center of nightlife. More right bank strolling took us to the Gare Saint-Lazare, the rail station immortalized in Henri Cartier-Bresson's 1932 photograph of what he called the decisive moment. Like the man caught in mid-jump, people are still racing to catch a train for Normandy here. The station itself spoofs the rush of modern life with a sculpture of clocks gone wild. But some travelers unwind at a play-it-for-free piano. From the square that used to be the infamous Bastille, a short stroll through the Marais quarter brought us to the handsome Place des Vosges. Victor Hugo lived in a corner of the red brick 17th century square. Tourists can visit his apartment, now a museum, or rest in the grassy park with its fountain and its nannies shepherding rich children. Paris is a woman's town, the saying goes, and for avid shoppers like Irma, signs advertising discounts aren't necessary. Many flock to the upscale, pricey Galeries Lafayette, Printemps, and other famed establishments near the Opera. The Galeries Lafayette has an atrium and dome that rival any site in Paris. Versailles is a 45-minute train excursion out to the southwest. You can't sleep in the Great Palace, but you can see a genuine king bed and an honest-to-goodness queen bed in the private quarters of high-living monarchs from Louis XIV through Marie Antoinette's luckless husband, Louis XVI. In the ornate Hall of Mirrors, the treaty ending World War I was signed. On the canals and vast estate grounds outside, we could see that it was good to be the king. At the Petit Hameau, the little hamlet, Marie Antoinette frolicked as a milkmaid and a shepherdess, until the annoyed actual peasantry put a bloody end to all the fun. Irma and I went back to the Eiffel Tower for a last view of Paris. But, oh no, the rail strikers were protesting there. The elevators to the top were shut down. And again, the real Paris took over from the vacation Paris. An air controller's strike threatened to ground us at Charles de Gaulle Airport. But did we worry? No, we had absorbed the charming advice that carried us through 11 days in the City of Light. Our Delta flight took off after all, and Paris, after another complicated day in 2,000 years of turmoil and glory, would always remain Paris.
Dès qu'elle entre dans Paris, Elle s'enroule, roule, roule autour de ses quais